You're watching The Week Ahead. I am Ibrahim Sani, and joining me is my colleague Hafiz Marzuki.
Thanks, Ibrahim, as always, as we head to the final week of May 2021. Of course, there are several big news here for this coming week. And of course, number one is, of course, the tightening of MCO 3.0, or what some in the social media are calling as MCO 3.0.1. And of course, the AstraZeneca second round opt-in. And of course, for you and I, we are both football fans, the Champions League finals.
And not just that, Hafiz, it's also the Premier League final match that's going to happen right after this show at 11 p.m. on Sunday, 23rd May. And you're right, those are the kind of news that we will be bringing you this evening throughout this show. But we'll also touch a little bit about what the Prime Minister has said just now. He gave a televised interview around 9 p.m. on RTM. And it was more of him explaining about why it can't be done, Y1.0, MCO 1.0. But we'll get to that in a bit. We must first go to the Minister Coordinating for Defence and also the MCO per se, Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri. Here he is explaining MCO 3.0.1.
Yang bekerja dari rumah untuk sektor swasta adalah 40%. Yang melibatkan 6.1 juta pekerja sektor swasta. Perkara ini detailnya akan diumumkan oleh pihak MITI sendiri.
So there you go. We have been debating about this for I think 2 days now, and it's going to be done on May 25th. And what it means by the MCO or stricter MCO is more of reducing the opening hours, trying to make sure that the 40% of the private sector that is going to be involving 6.1 million workers are going to be involved in this MCO. But I don't know what took them the time to explain to us that this was the measure that is needed.
I feel Ibrahim, it's a bit of a deja vu thing happening again, right? We've experienced this last year, in fact, with the tightening and then non-tightening, and again this year we're also facing a similar situation. I felt like did I live 2020? Apparently not. And it's clear from this set of announcement that was announced by Ismail Sabri, of course, will spark a huge debate about, again, in terms of operation timing, where it includes limiting most of the operations only to 8 p.m. And of course, some would argue, say this would increase the concentration of orders heading into 8 p.m. Well, I actually don't know, but clearly I believe we've seen what the Prime Minister said in his interview just now. Ibrahim, what do you think?
I think it's important for us to take point that there is that element of a pandemic fatigue. Okay, people like you and me, we are tired of working from home for the past 15 months. It's going to be 15 months, okay, leading to the day of 18th of March 2020. And perhaps it's also because of that lethargy of pandemic that we're going to be able to not comply with the stricter full-on MCO, so to speak. And that's from the human aspect of things. And it's even compounded because when you have that antara dua darjat hashtag going on, it's not going to be easy for people like you and me having to, confine ourselves to the comforts of our home and working from home and, all the pains along with it. But at the same time, we see a lot of other celebrities and all that flaunting the SOP laws, just like that. It's going to be problematic for us to remain in compliance. So that's why I think it's not going to work with MCO 1.0. But having said that, as we harken back to what the Prime Minister said back, about 1.5 hours ago, the Prime Minister made an effort to explain why the government cannot reimpose the same version of the MCO 1.0 that was first implemented on March 18th last year, because that saw most economic sectors shut down. And they acknowledged that while the Health Ministry acknowledged that MCO 1.0 is still the best option, but the economic impact will be severe. So he is, and clearly as stated in his speech just now, outweighing the importance of keeping the economic sectors alive versus trying to keep the pandemic numbers down. That was the conscious decision that the cabinet has taken collectively. And I don't know whether I'm going to be thrilled about the whole notion. I think it's just stuck between two options of either the worst decision or the worser decision. What do you think of it?
Of course, we're looking at this as a balance, right? It's an equilibrium between balancing lives versus livelihoods. But actually, I've had an interesting conversation with our colleague, actually, Melissa Idris, which she pointed out several articles which highlights the false dichotomy between protecting lives and livelihoods, or balancing lives and livelihoods. Instead of just balancing between this health aspect and the economic aspect, I think by now, 1 year into the pandemic, I think government or policymakers have to look at this issue as protecting both lives and livelihoods. I totally understand the predicament our government is in, Ibrahim. It's certainly a very hard situation, and I could see the intention behind Tan Sri Muhyiddin's interview just now. He just wants to make sure as many people livelihoods are not affected, despite our number of cases shooting up. And of course, when we look at this, I'm no expert, but I believe there should be measures put in place to keep our numbers low, or at least bring us to a place where it starts to show a downward trend. Of course, one of it is, of course, I know the health DG have already spoken about this, mass testing, etc., doesn't feel the situation warrants it. But of course, it's time for a different strategy, right? We've used one or several strategies before this that lead us to this current predicament. Maybe it's time for us to rethink our strategies and relook at the drawing board and start thinking at or looking at other options in order to keep our numbers down, Ibrahim.
I think you're right and on point. However, I do think that this is still firefighting at its core. And I think no matter how you play out this story, MCO 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 3.01, or all the other decimals after these numbers, the moral of the story is that if the vaccination rates are not going to be kept up, we're still going to go through with all these different kinds of permutations, which brings about that big story of the vaccination rate that we will be discussing at length after this break. We'll be right back after these messages. Thanks for staying on with us. Okay, so earlier on, we were talking about MCO 3.0 that's going to be taking place next week, starting May 25th. How that is going to change the way you carry on your lives, I'm not too sure, other than the fact that opening hours for the places that you normally go to will be reduced. And I am pretty sure that the number of people getting summonses, fines, compounds is going to increase. Because if we take that word in tandem, i.e. tighter MCO or stricter MCO, we're going to be experiencing the cops being a little bit more liberal in dishing out summonses. So I do think that in the week ahead, we're going to see those kind of numbers rise up, which brings about that whole notion of how do we manage the pandemic internally outright. The only answer to this, there's no other answer, the only answer to this is through vaccinations. Now, we're going to be talking about all the kind of items when it comes to PIC, which is the big vaccination programs that is currently running under Pfizer and Sinovac. But first, we have to talk about the opt-in program of AstraZeneca 2.0. Because the current pace of vaccinations could see a further ramp up in the coming days and, of course, in the coming weeks, particularly next week, based on several developments. This includes the country's ongoing vaccination program, a special second round opt-in vaccination AstraZeneca program that happened today on Sunday in the afternoon at noon just now. The opt-in program with priority given to those aged 60 and above in the Klang Valley, Penang, Johor, Kuching and Miri could further raise the daily vaccination rate. Hafiz, do you think that this is going to speed up things? Because we do see numbers rising up to 80,000 vaccinations per day. This is very encouraging if you think about it.
Yes, definitely. We're looking at, naturally, I thought that it would be, definitely it will speed up vaccinations. But of course, I think the stickler here is, of course, providing it to those aged 60 and above. Clearly, I would say this group of people would be the most challenging to convince to take some of the vaccines. And it is interesting to see that the government opt in for this opt-in program. Because I remembered, I think the last time we spoke about it, Ibrahim, which was, I guess, maybe the first time the opt-in program was actually offered to the public. In Klang Valley, it was less than 4 hours where all the 200 over 1,000 doses of AstraZeneca has been snapped up. In fact, for the past 2 weeks, I've been seeing friends of ours, colleagues of ours taking the AstraZeneca shots and everyone looking healthy and also looking very excited and looking forward to the second dose. So I think this would definitely, of course, speed up vaccinations for all these places that they've announced. But it remains to be seen actually how, in terms of the overall picture, because if we look at the our world in data in terms of the statistics of the vaccination, yes, I think the past 2 days there's been a slight uptick. In fact, our coordinating minister for the National Immunization Program, Kari Jamaluddin, has just tweeted that Malaysia is showing an upward trend in terms of vaccination rate, which is good as compared to other countries in ASEAN. Of course, we're not talking about Singapore here. Singapore is way ahead, and we're talking about different demographics, different sizes, different population, etc., etc. But among all the other ASEAN states, Malaysia is actually doing, I would say, positively well for now. Of course, it'll be interesting to see how it will be moving up, especially when it has been reported that Khairi has already said that in June we are expecting our vaccination rate to go up to 160,000, Ibrahim. That means it's double about current rate, or maybe even more than double of current rate, which is about between 70 to 80,000 a day. So I'm actually looking forward to it, because when we're talking about a vaccination rate of 160,000 per day, we're looking at 1 million people vaccinated within 1 week. And if you look at the size of, or rather the size of Malaysia and how much, what percentage of the population that we need to target for the herd immunity process, for the herd immunity to be achieved, I guess we can achieve or achieve it by the end of the year if the rates maintain as above 100,000 a day, Ibrahim.
You know, you've touched on a lot of important points. Let's break it down. First of all, for you that are watching us and joining us this evening, if you want to be part of the volunteers that can help the current vaccination programs to be ongoing, find out more how you can register yourself to be volunteers. Because JKJAV, the coordinating committee that is doing these vaccinations, are making a call for volunteers, because to get that 160,000 daily vaccination numbers there, you need people, literal human beings, to help with the vials, with the syringes, measuring the syringe to be the right amount of dosage. There's a big problem about that as well. We saw last week whether or not it was 0.1 mil or 0.5 mil, particularly for AstraZeneca. If you want to help out the vaccination program to be moving along, find out how you can sign up to be a volunteer. Next week, there's going to be a lot of items that is going to be tied up with how you can help out with the vaccination program. That's number one. Number two, Hafiz, we're talking about Our World in Data website. This is very interesting because while that graph that you were referring to shows a very high increase, if you take out Singapore, a very high increase between our other neighbors of Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, you name it, both in terms of absolute numbers as well as per 100,000 population, we are doing really well. However, this begs that whole notion of whether or not the strategy needs to be, as it is now, first dose on the day itself, and then for Pfizer after 4 weeks, for AstraZeneca within 12 weeks, or do we answer the call of the leader of opposition by saying that we have to rethink about getting everyone getting the first dose, and then circle back and get most of other people the second dose. Now, this is currently happening in Singapore because Singapore is also thinking about getting everyone to do the first dose first before doing the second dose. Because according to Oxford University's Our World in Data website, for example, the share of people who have received at least one dose of COVID-19 vaccinations in Malaysia was 3.77% as of 4 days ago, as of May 17th. In Singapore, that figure is 33.61% and 5.06% in Indonesia. Now, that's a big jump, right? So we really have to start to rethink whether or not we want to keep on this trajectory, or we switch to how Singapore is going to do it, i.e. get everyone to do the first dose first and then circle back. What do you think, Hafiz?
I think when we look at this whole pandemic management and strategy, right, Ibrahim, we've been reporting it since last year, since actually, in fact, the start of the first reported case, which is probably, if I'm not mistaken, is in December 2019, or towards the tail end of 2019. And you see the response has been evolving month after month. In fact, when we talk about COVID, a week is actually long in terms of development because new strategies could have come out, new details, new medical reports could have come out. And actually, it is important for those who are doing the decision at policy-making level to be nimble and agile in adapting to the current needs. Because if you look at it, we are fighting variants left, right, and center. We're also looking at how the vaccine supply is coming. Although I remember the minister in charge have spoken time and time again about a fixed delivery schedule. But there are instances or there are scenarios where it may not arrive according to schedule. So this is where we need to actually pivot and change our strategy, and we need to be agile and able to actually adapt ourselves to these situations. Because at the end of the day, what's important is to get as many people vaccinated, right? We need to get as many Malaysians vaccinated. Which road will lead us there? And I'm going to say, take that road, whatever road that is. If that means that we take more vaccines, like we expand our vaccine portfolio to 10 portfolio vaccines, then by all means, do it. Get us, because I remember, I think we've spoken to many guests throughout our time covering COVID. And in fact, one thing that stick with me, the best vaccine is the vaccine that you can get right now. So just give, of course, right now, as approved by NPRA, that is the best vaccine that we should get.
Right. Okay. Also related is what we normally do on this show, which is to cover a bunch of AGMs that's going to happen next week. And while there will be plenty of companies hosting their annual general meetings and the extraordinary general meetings, particularly confirming their Q1 numbers. There's one company that attracted our attention, which is Duopharma Biotech Berhad, which will hold their AGM this Friday on May 28th. The reason that we are attracted to this particular story is because while they posted strong earnings, their bonus issue failed to rally investors. This is because the Russian-made vaccine called Sputnik V has yet to yield results. Delivery of Sputnik V has turned out to be much slower than anticipated. And an analyst says that because people were expecting that agreement to be signed by end of month of May, and that didn't translate, perhaps it's now going to be moved to June. This has translated to some, I guess, investors losing their taste into Duopharma Biotech Berhad. But that's the story of that company. Now we want to talk about Sputnik V per se, because right now it's still pending, right, Hafiz, from NPRA. Yeah. The question is, wouldn't it be more beneficial if we bring Sputnik V into the picture as soon as possible?
Yes, exactly, Ibrahim. And if you look at the whole, even the efficacy rate, of course, it's been reported between 91.7% all the way up to 97.6%, depends on where you're reading the report from. So I am excited I am personally excited for this Sputnik V vaccine to come to Malaysia. Of course, it all depends on how NPRA scrutinize the documents and give an approval. Of course, we also have CanSino vaccines available, and these also have yet to be subjected to the approval of NPRA. At the end of the day, we are looking at how many vaccines are approved and when we can get it administered to our population.
All right, we'll go for one more short break before we talk about football. That is going to happen literally 9 minutes from now. We'll be right back after this message.
Dengan 60,000 rancangan dalam poket, stream
So in about 8 minutes from now, the EPL will kick off their final match for the season. This is yet another interesting season because this is the second season that we are celebrating under the COVID pandemic. We know who the champion will be, but the question now is in terms of the three other teams that is trying to vie for Champions League position. I'm a Chelsea fan. I really am hoping Chelsea to beat Aston Villa, even though John Terry is the coach there. I really want them to win. Hafiz, what do you think?
Yeah, it's looking good for Chelsea, definitely, right? After Tuchel took over, I think it's been on the upside for your team, especially. I mean, Champions League is basically about over a week away, and I think Chelsea is actually in prime position to actually qualify for the Champions League. I think the more interesting conversation here is, of course, those who are supporting Liverpool. And I don't know how many of those are there in Malaysia, those who support Leicester, because they are neck and neck in terms of who will get the final spot for the Champions League qualification. But of course, Ibrahim, let's talk about your team's bigger game, which is not actually tonight, which is, I mean, it's further away. It's about 1 week away.
Further away, on May 31st, the Champions League final between Manchester City and Chelsea is going to be taking place in Porto. You know, I don't want to make this story just about the Champions League. It's going to be involved when it comes to European football. And within the next week, we're going to be expecting a lot of conversation into how European football is going to be restructured even further because of the European Super League being tossed up in the air and then immediately killed right after the furor from the fans and punters alike. So it's not just about Champions League games per se, it is also about the business of football in Europe, and of course the business of football, particularly in England. And that is how it's going to be shaping up, leading up to the Euro 2020 that is going to happen in a few weeks from now. I know it's going to be 2021, but they still call it Euro 2020. So that kind of conversation is going to be a killer for us to talk about.
Yes, definitely. I think, you brought up a very interesting point. In fact, the so-called death of the European Super League before it even starts clearly highlights a deeper problem in how the structure is right now. And I believe UEFA would have taken heed of that development and would have, I think there were reports ever since it first came to surface a few weeks ago that they are thinking about restructuring the current system of the European football. Ibrahim.
Fantastic. So for you guys, thanks again for joining us. If you want to know what's going to happen next week, the MCO 3.0 is going to take place on May 25th. AstraZeneca opt-in second round has taken place. Of course, those that have checked in or opted in, do check your MySejahtera. Perhaps even turn on the push notification from the app to allow you to receive all the updates coming in from that application. Remember, we have seen cases where appointment dates have been changed, appointment times have been changed, all at short notice or no notice at all. So please be further informed on that. But until then, that's all that we have on this show's Week Ahead. Get the latest news updates on COVID-19 and COVID-19 vaccines from astroawani.com and on Astro Awani app. My name is Ibrahim Sani.
And I'm Hafiz Mazuki signing off for this edition of The Week Ahead. Good night.